Parliament and the Senate, all of us need to support our women in terms of leadership and representation. This should cut across all the sectors, private and public sectors. We are supposed to support women and empower them for future.
I think it is important for the government to just be cognizant of the fact that there is lack of proper representation, especially for women at the top. When we understand this, I think it will help us channel a way, or rather find a way in which we can have this discussion to just ensure that we have equity. Now we can have a gender responsive budgeting whereby we're just taking into consideration the effects of government plans on women. We can also have a specific gender office whereby it will be just scrutinizing the gender representation of the budget, giving feedback to the government, and just finding out whether it is being effective or not.
When women trespass, quote unquote, in spaces that were previously completely male-dominated, there is often a penalty. In education and in the workplace, that backlash often takes the form of sexual harassment, humiliation, etc. Wamama wote wapewe GPS panic buttons such that wakitishwa wanafinya, polisi wanafika hapo hapo kisha kukamata mtishaji.
Most of us think that women are always number two. They can never lead. We tend to think that women are incapable of leadership, and that is why we don't elect them or appoint them in the available positions. So the most viable solution is to make sure that we Kenyans change our mentality and henceforth see women as capable leaders who can lead, and even at times actually they can lead better.
When women are educated and empowered to make choices in their lives, they enable their daughters to go to school. So this one will bring the balance equation.
Happy International Women's Day to all the beautiful women of this country, to those in the panel, and even to those watching across the borders. Now, Trevor, my input this night is our women are likely to win big by the passage of the BBI because they have been given a slot per county. Don't you think that will be enough to end this cry each and every time of gender disparity, gender inequality?
All right. Kendi, as we wind up on this conversation, what are you looking forward to going forward as Microsoft country manager in Kenya, and what more do you think we need to put in place to ensure that that 100-year gap that you're talking about is made even shorter?
You know, first, Trevor, I must say there's nothing more beautiful than watching men. You know, we have the phrase he for she, men who are for women. It is one of the most powerful tools we can have in our journey to achieving equity. That said, as Microsoft, we believe in the collective impact of the power of unity to fuel the growth, retention, and leadership of women. We believe that when we understand the diverse perspectives and experiences of girls and women, we can expand our ability to help women thrive no matter the kind of challenges they face. Earlier, before we started the panel, we saw about the Samburu Women Rangers, and there was a story for Antonella, right?
Yeah.
And we saw how she's been able to achieve so much for herself and challenge a previously male-dominated field. So those are the stories we like to see. And so we also believe in Microsoft that you can actually build the muscle for being inclusive. You can build your ability to be inclusive in 3 ways. One, you can practice awareness. How do you practice awareness? You understand and mitigate the effects of unconscious bias. I believe earlier one of the panelists talked about the unconscious bias that we work with. Even women, we work with it, men work with it. So if you can walk aware what that unconscious bias is, and then practice being aware of it so that you stop yourself when you're about to do it, that's one way you can actually build the muscle to be inclusive. A second way you can do it is exercise curiosity. And how does this happen? You look at, because we all have different experiences. If you tried to, and we were taught about being empathetic, when you were growing up and you're told, try to be empathetic, not just sympathetic. So put yourself in the shoes of the people. So when as women we come and we tell you, it's hard to obtain this life integration. Try and understand us. Don't be quick to judge us, but try and ask more questions. Understand, why do you say it's difficult? Why do you say X and Y? Why, if differently abled, why? What is that? Ask, be curious. Then you build that muscle. Yep. And the third is when you demonstrate courage. And again, in the theme of this day, which is challenge, choose to challenge. For you to challenge, it means you have courage. It means you're willing to get into difficult conversation. So when you do that, when you practice awareness, when you exercise curiosity, when you demonstrate courage, you build the muscle to be inclusive.
All right. Carol, how do we collectively bridge this gap?
It's working together. And I think, as Kendi said, we all have biases. But let me say also, I think one of the things that a lot of women suffer unconsciously, and I do, and many women do, we are afraid of success. Because it's not a fear because of not knowing what will happen, but it's just that thing of you don't want to go for it. We the way we are, we want to nurture, we want to move slowly, and so sometimes we miss some of the greatest opportunities because of fear of success. And I think that's a challenge to challenge a lot of the women to say, don't fear the success, and the path is getting easier as we go along. And so I think that's one of the things that we need to keep ingraining in us. But secondly, I guess the biases of, but she's a woman. Let me give us a short story of once I was driving and to Mombasa, and I just had one of those Toyota cars, and there was this car behind me that I didn't even see. And so I stopped, and this guy was driving one of the very, very fast cars. And he comes out and he wanted to say, I was trying to keep up with you, but you were too fast. But his first statement, he said, and she's a woman. To him, how can the woman be the one who was trying to compete with and can't catch up with, those biases? And then we carry them to work, And for me, I just laughed. I thought it was just so funny. Or many times someone will come to the office and say, oh, I thought it was a Mr. Karaoke. And then you're young, and you're small, the interesting biases that we carry around. And sometimes they affect how we think of the women at the workplace, or how we treat women in the workplace, or how we treat each other, or even how we treat the men in the workplace. So I think for me, that biases, that the conditioning we have, I think is once we start breaking that, I think that's what will lead to a lot of us, all of us working better together going forward, and creating those opportunities, seeing the need. Again, as Beatrice said, the woman carries a lot of burden, because even though she's at the workplace, the home front, she still carries the bigger home front, So the men being more empathetic and being able to say, what, she has a small child, let me help her today on this area and all that. And doesn't mean you're seeing it as that she's disabled or something. It's not a disability. It's just working together and appreciating the skills and the energies that we all bring together.
All right.
And seeing that. And so, and maybe just to finish, even at the board, I see sometimes we bring the same biases. We feel like if the men argue this way in the board, I need to argue the same way. No. You're with a woman in that board, and you bring very different skills, very different ways of seeing things that are useful in that board, and so the more we lead like women and not like men lead like men, the better it is for all of us in the society.
All right. Wakiaga, are you making any commitments as the Kenya Association of Manufacturers on this day?
First, I want to just say I really appreciate the feedback that came from the men who spoke earlier, and one of them who spoke about the need for the GPS. When we carried out the study on women in manufacturing, one of the things we found is that women are actually going through sexual exploitation and being asked for favors in exchange for some of the things that have been put in place, whether it's credit facilities or compliance. So it's really something critical that we need to deal with some of these issues if we're going to see more women get into business and get into entrepreneurship. So as the Association of Manufacturers, what we want to do is to really work with government to strengthen the implementation of the gender-aware and gender-sensitive laws, and to also ensure that our regulatory compliance and legal requirements are also simplified in a bid to improve the ease of doing business so that we see more women getting into business and not having to deal with the challenges I mentioned. And for this month, specifically on 25th of March, we'll be having our Women in Manufacturing dinner. We do that annually. And this year we have the president and founder of the Global Women in Manufacturing, who will be one of our key guests, and also Sandao Jambo from the UN Global Compact and other ladies. We'll also be having an award to recognize women who are in manufacturing and who are also able to, we'll recognize those who are able to pivot during the COVID season.
Yeah.
So we'll continue to work and support and see how we can grow more women in the manufacturing sector and also build the skills. Because one of the things that Kendi spoke about is the issue of the STEM courses and the fact that very few women are willing to get into science, technology, engineering, and maths. And that's an area where through our TVET programs and other work we are doing with GIZ and other partners, we are trying to get more women into this STEM courses so that we have more of them getting into the pipeline of manufacturing, leadership, and entrepreneurship in the country.
Okay.
So we want to continue to choose to challenge, and we invite the men and all of us to join this journey. Thank you.
All right. Elachi, you know now this falls in your docket completely as the cast for public service and gender. How do we bridge this gap?
Well, first of all, many thanks to our CS, Professor Margaret Kopia. I think one of the things she has done is to really push the agenda, especially in terms of recovering from COVID and how we are moving on in post-COVID and ensuring that economically how are women going to ensure they are able to tap on the different funds that government are bringing in through the Ministry of Treasury and other ministries. And also coming up with a very elaborate framework to work with the different ministries so that you are able to bridge the gap that is there. But more importantly, I always say it is important for all of us to wear what I normally call a gender lens. A gender lens that helps you to look at the different sectors and how you can ensure now you bridge the gap. One of the things I would want to plead also to the chair of the budget, Kanini Kega, my good friend, that it is important as they do budgets, let us have a gender lens in those budgets. Let us look at Article 43 clearly. We are talking about health, we are talking about economic empowerment, women in education, children shelter, all that. And we ensure that the budgets that we are putting in now are budgets that are going to improve and see many of our women and also young people to tap on the on the youth fund. The youth fund that is just there. I can hear the boys are crying, yes, but I also want to salute the ones who have really supported and who realize women in leadership will change this country. And at that time, we will not be talking about men and women. We'll be talking about that inclusivity that I've talked about earlier and ensuring that development is at par, that we are able to ensure if it is revenues, how are we bringing out the revenues? How is KRA collecting revenues? I know women really are the ones who even give more revenues, but you'll still find them doing the more informal jobs. And we are saying, if we have a budget that is gender sensitive, then you move to the next step. How do women access? How do young people access to be able now to develop themselves? For the young men, this is what I want to say. As we choose to challenge, because that's for women, but also for our men, for our young people, it is also time for us to relook at our whole strategy in terms of how do we ensure both girls and boys can move on together. And in this, we also need to come out and be very clear. The girls have been looking at their mothers, looking at how they strain and do their stuff. I want to call upon our fathers. I want to call upon our husbands. It is time. You have time for our children. Have time to walk with your son. Have time for your son to look at you as a role model. That is dad. He's my role model. And you'll find them moving to the next level they will want to leave, to move. But if you leave everything for mom, then definitely you will come and they'll have the cry. Because mom, you are all equal to me. I have to walk a journey with all of you. You are all my children. So fathers, wherever you are, I challenge you, choose to challenge. Please, be role models for your sons and your daughters, because I know as daughters we go more with our fathers, but it's more important.
Some people say even the children include the men also. But
yeah, the men, okay, but it's important.
There's a lot of feedback here. And Olo Tieno, and I'd like you to get just quick remarks on this. Olo Tieno says if we want girls to be able to complete education and help society, we need to end child marriage. And then there's a Twitter handle that calls itself Safe Schools. Says there is all evidence to prove that women are better leaders. Harmful social cultural norms and mindsets have led to irrational misconceptions about women in leadership. And then there's Kiongozi Fred Nganga, who says any woman who understands the problems of running a home will be nearer to understanding the problems of running a country. I don't know whether you take that. Andrea Ochieng says the men decide for the women here, wondering how much of a say women had in the decisions. All right. Steve Mulwa says let's change this narrative of calling women housewives. We should empower them, give them power, responsibilities, and gender equality. What a man can do, a woman can do better. Watching from Kitengela behind Eastmart Market, he says. And then we have Miriam, who says, when women succeed, we all succeed by creating space for women at all levels of decision making. You are investing in the future of the communities. Women's education, workplace equality, and security will create a secure future for all. This is where the spanner now is thrown into the works. Jacob Abere Matlala says, when women stop being flower girls in political participation and avoid jealousy among themselves, that is the time they shall achieve gender equity.
Well, that's a narrative I always say men use to say that women are jealousy to each other, women are flower girls. I don't understand the flower, because before you even enter into that political space, the pain you go through, the beatings you go through, the words you go through, the abusement, I mean, there's nothing like a flower girl in politics. If you're there like then you'll never survive. So I always tell any woman who has come through a political process is a woman who goes through everything that you cannot talk about. The abusement, you are called every word, just the way now he's saying, you are called a prostitute, every word. And yet you're not part of that. But because you want to break the ceiling, you have to go through it to break that ceiling. And so I would want to say, for one of the things I know, women are not flower. In politics, you can never be a flower girl. You will call us flower girls, but when you enter into that arena, it is how you survive in that arena. The few who come, who want to be flowers, are thrown out. For those who want to remain, you'll have to have a stand. And the stand is you have to face that political space head on and ensure head on. You have those who have fought, have come through. You have to learn what they went through. They will tell you. I remember Martha Karua used to tell us very clearly, and I'll say it this evening, if you want to run into a political space as a woman, never allow yourself to be friendly or to befriend a colleague in political space. But be colleagues to work together. You will survive in that arena. So that is one thing I'll tell my women and my girls, that in a political space, you are not a flower girl. Not in the 21st century. No.
Brilliant. We'll have to leave it there. Thank you so much for making time. Phyllis Wakiaga, CEO CAM, which is Kenya Association of Manufacturers. Carol Karuga, CEO KEPSA, which is Kenya Private Sector Alliance. Kenny Derito, Country Manager, Microsoft Kenya, and Beatrice Elachi, CAS, Public Service and Gender. And happy International Women's Day to all of you. And thank you so much for staying with me all through. I know it's quite late. We appreciate all the time. And thank you so much for watching Monday Report Town Hall session. We'll try to do this again. The next time it happens, we'll ensure we get more women. I see the comments here saying that we don't have as many women in our panels. We try. Good night for now.